Today, children in the United States cannot legally work until they are 16. The rights are being protected by the U.S. government, but that wasn't always the case. In the early 1900s, children were forced to risk their lives by doing dangerous jobs even adults found hard to do, and they only earned pennies a day. Louis Hine, a photographer and teacher, took responsibility for showing America these deplorable conditions and made it his life's work to fight for changes in child labor laws. There is work that profits children, and there is work that brings profit only to employers. The object of employing children is not to train them, but to get high profit from their work. Children had no rights. They had no voice. I wanted to show the things that needed to be corrected. I wanted to show the things that needed to be appreciated. My name is Louis Hine. I purchased my first camera in 1903, where I started capturing images to use in my classroom. In 1908, I published my first book called Charities and Comments. I hope my photographs will change the way poor families in this country were treated. If I could tell the story in words, I wouldn't need to look around a camera, but people needed proof. People needed to see these injustices with their own eyes. As a school teacher, I was very critical about child labor practices, and I wanted my students to be well educated. That's why, in 1908, the Child Labor Committee employed me to document these abuses with my camera. I traveled over 100,000 miles all over the country, taking over 5,000 pictures of children. I even learned how to write with my hand inside my pocket so I wouldn't give myself away. Factory and my owners would often refuse to let me take photographs because they were afraid of what I would find out. But I wouldn't give up. I would hide my camera in the middle of coal and pose as one of the very own Breaker Boys, risking my life for the freedom of child labor. I wouldn't give up. Come on, Liz, let's take a quick picture. Please, sir, if we are caught with you, they will surely beat us. My family can't afford to have me lose my job. I'm the only boy in the family. I'm helping put food on the table. Children like myself, as young as 8 years old, were forced to put coal in the machine, though the machine was chopping it up at the same time. That's why we were called Breaker Boys. We risked getting lung disease, brain cancer from lack of oxygen, infections, injuries, and even death in these careless conditions of the mines. That's how I lost my finger. But we have an obligation. We owe it to our family. They can't survive without our income. At the age of 8, I left school and was given a job in the mines. I found it pretty hard getting out of bed at 5:30 every morning. The first 2 months, the road to work wasn't bad. But with the coming of snow, I found that I was much too small to make my way to work alone. Many times, I was forced to wait by the side of the road for an older man to help me through the snow. Often, I was lifted to the shoulders of some fellow miner and carried straight to the colliery. My first day in the mines was down the number 1 shaft at Bear Creek Colliery. This shaft was 321 feet deep. I don't think I'll ever forget the terrible sensation I had while descending that morning. I was so dizzy when I was halfway down, I thought I was going up. During the Industrial Revolution of the 1880s, many new jobs became available in coal mines and factories across the United States. Due to economic needs, many families would send their children, especially boys, to work these harsh, dangerous, and irregular conditions. After I exposed these conditions by capturing a group of young, filthy, and exhausted Breaker Boys, the fight for child labor regulations exploded across America. The media and photographers took the responsibility for exposing these injustices, leading to child labor laws, minimum wage laws, and setting other standards for other workplace safety legislation. Not only there were children working in coal mines, but there were also children working in factories. I remember a young girl who worked in the cotton mills, North Carolina, at only 8 years old. For 11 long hours of sorting cotton a day, I only earned 25 cents. And I will never forget photographing little Mary, who's only 4 years of age, working for pennies a day. Seeing is believing. How can you not look at this picture and not want to help her? These were only 2 out of the instances across America where children were working in harsh conditions. Come out of bed, little sleepyhead, and get you a bite to eat. The factory whistle's calling you, there's no more time to sleep. Our children, they grew up unlearned, they never went to school. They never learned to read or write, they learned to spin and spool. Every time I close my eyes, I see that picture still. But textile work was carried on babies in the mill. This song was from the 1900s. It represented what most children were facing. My name is Francis Lance. I'm 12 years old. I'm a newspaper delivery boy. I can't read. I don't know my ABCs. Do I want to learn? Yes, but I'm forced to work all the time. I didn't know at the time, but when Louis Hine took a picture of me, this was another step forward for us children to have a future. He formed a small group where they started posting flyers all over New York City, fighting tirelessly for the Keating-Owen Act to pass in 1918. Join the National Child Labor Committee. Fight for our rights. Fight for our freedom. Give us children a meaningful life and a better future. Will you join? You will positively change your life and the future. Don't you think healthy and educated children are better for America?
All is fine for other people, but I need my income. The other side of the story is some parents have no choice but to send our kids to work. My name is Ronald Degenhart. I am a cotton mill worker. My boys, Reuben and John, can't work because of the Keating-Owen Act. I believe this law violated my son's rights. I took my case to court and argued it all the way through the Supreme Court. The Keating-Owen Act violated the 5th and 10th Amendment of the Constitution. The 5th Amendment states, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property. This law violated my son's liberty to work. And the 10th Amendment states, federal reserves powers to the states. My state understands that there are families that have fallen in hard times. But our kids have a responsibility for our family. Unfortunately, some justices did not see it that way. We lost our case 5-4.
This court case was a significant victory for me and the Child Labor Committee after non-stop lobbying years. But it wasn't until 1938 that the seeds that I planted bore sweeter fruit. That year, the Congress passed the Fair Labor Standard Act, which impacted children immediately across the country. It guaranteed working hours of 7 hours per day, not including school hours, and it also guaranteed a minimum wage of 40 to 75 cents per hour. By 1938, Louis Hine had succeeded in securing the children's rights that were being ignored through the Industrial Revolution. He made sure the U.S. government took responsibility for monitoring child labor. But in his later life, his professional work suffered. Government support for his work stopped. Fewer and fewer people became interested in his photographs. In 1940, he died of poverty, never realizing the full and lasting impact of his life's work. Hine's effort led to the passing of the Keating-Owen Act in 1918, which led to the passing of the Fair Labor Standard Act in 1938. With better working conditions and better wages, immigrants around the world want to move to America. Over 700,000 workers in the U.S., not only children, were guaranteed better working conditions and better wages, like earning half wage for overtime work. President Roosevelt called it the most important piece of New Deal legislation passed since the Social Security Act of 1935. Workers around the world took notice. To this day, Louis Hine still has a lasting impact on immigrants. A survey conducted by the Pew Research Center said that 35% of Mexicans would move to the U.S. because they would have a better life here. But my real legacy was the collection of pictures I took of children in sweatshops, fields, and other child workplaces. It really highlighted the appalling conditions they were in. I called my photos human documents. It showed how real people were. I never highlighted nothing. I never corrected nothing. New York artist Ben Shahn said, Hines was one of the greats. I don't know a photographer who has not been impacted by some extent by Louis Hine. One photographer who was impacted by Louis Hine was Dorothea Lange. Louis Hine used this camera to change the way the public saw child labor. Dorothea Lange used her camera in the same exact way to change how the poor were being seen throughout the Great Depression. I said it once, but I'll say it again. If I could tell the story in words, I wouldn't need to let around a camera. But people needed proof. People needed to see these injustices with their own eyes. If one picture led to thousands of words, then my pictures led to 10,000s of meaningful words.
Louis Hine will forever be known as the photographer for letting children be children. That's it.
That's it.